Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to City of Grand Prairie's Entrepreneur U marketing tips. I will get out of your way. My name is Kay Brown Patrick. I am the business manager for the City of Grand Prairie's Economic Development Department. And today we will be hearing from Sarah Filment. I'm Sarah. If I said your name wrong, please correct me.
It's fine.
Please feel free to put any of your questions in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat this morning for Sarah. If you have any questions regarding to the marketing tips, please put them in the chat and we will get those answered for you. At the end of the session, I will also give you information on our upcoming sessions. Same time on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month through July. So we look forward to seeing you all. And so Sarah, if you have anything to share, I'm going to allow you to share your screen and I will get out of the way.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Kay, also, and good morning to everybody else that is on this call right now. I hope that you can see my screen properly. Are you able to see? If not, I'm about to share it. Hang on one second. Is everybody able to see the screen?
We got some yeses.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure because technology sometimes, we have no control over that, right? Well, good morning again. My name is Sarah Felmet, and just a little bit of a background on me. I am originally from Trinidad. So if those of you don't know where that is, it's the very South Island in the Caribbean, almost to Venezuela. And just a little on my educational background, I do have an MBA in marketing, which is why I'm talking to you all today about marketing. I also have a master's in public admin, and then I have an in sports management as well. So I have been with Dallas College going on 15 years, and I primarily teach in the area of marketing, but I also teach in the areas of HR, as well as a couple other courses such as Principles of Business, which since you are all looking to become entrepreneurs or have taken some kind of entrepreneurial venture, I'm assuming that you have a little bit of knowledge of business, or if you need some more, of course, we're always willing to help. At the end of this presentation, I have included my email address as well as my LinkedIn. So obviously we're just allotted 1 hour for this. And so it's very difficult to go through all of marketing in just an hour. But if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to help individuals grow their business or answer any questions that you might have. So let's go ahead and get started. I kind of wanted to start with this little quote right here. Marketing takes a day to learn and a lifetime to master. So it takes a little bit more than a day. Like I said, we just have an hour right now, but marketing takes a lot to learn essentially, but it really does take a lifetime to master, especially in our area because things are changing so quickly, right? There's rapid evolution of technology, and with that comes new applications, new ways to market, and so forth. And that's why marketing is just very, very dynamic. And so one of the important things that I would stress if you are going into any kind of entrepreneurial venture is to always keep up with professional development when it comes to marketing. Unlike other fields such as accounting, where numbers are numbers, 1 + 1 is always equal to 2. Again, marketing evolves over the years. Back in the day when we were first marketing, in 40s and 30s, et cetera, we used to send things in the mail, right? And a lot of times we still do, but typically when you get something in the mail, what happens is you end up throwing it out. And so we've evolved from just kind of those mailers all the way up to social media videos, a concept we'll call microblogging that I'll talk to you guys a little bit about today. But there's just been a lot of evolution over the past 50, 60 years or so. And so it's very important that you stay up to date with marketing. So just to kind of go over what we're going to talk about today, I just kind of did a little bit of a welcome. I'm going to just do a couple of housekeeping items real quick. And then we'll talk a little bit about what is marketing, because a lot of people confuse marketing with sales. And I think it's very important for entrepreneurs to realize the difference in those two. We'll also talk about the 4 Ps of marketing, also called the marketing mix. And that essentially is what you will build your marketing plan around. We'll talk a little bit about how to develop your brand and kind of how to build that. Branding is such a buzzword today. You know, we brand ourselves, we brand our products, we brand our image, we brand services. There's so many things that we brand. And then we'll talk about how to create your marketing plan and why it's important to create a marketing plan. We'll touch a little bit on social media and also some marketing strategies for entrepreneurs. And then we'll also talk a little bit about product development, because some of you guys may be in the stage where you are thinking, hey, I want to open up a business or I want to develop something, but you're not real sure how to get there or what those steps are. Okay. Whereas some of y'all may already have some of those ideas, but this part is going to be for individuals that are in the thinking phase, that are thinking, hey, where do I go from here? I have this idea of what next. So real quick, couple housekeeping items. I am doing this broadcast and presentation from my home office. So I do want to apologize. I have 2 dogs. So if they bark, again, I do apologize for that. It's one of the caveats with remote working, right? The other thing is, please keep your mic on mute. Kay has graciously volunteered to monitor the chat. So if you have any questions, just be sure to put them in there. I'm not able to see the chat as I am going through this presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of it. So,
Sarah, really quick,
yes.
Can you move the microphone closer to your, I don't know if you're speaking through a headset or microphone. Someone said that it's a little muffled. I can hear you, but just for the hearing, yes, I think
Can
you're
you hear me?
Yes. The question was in regards to hearing impaired, so I think that may be better. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, sorry guys. I usually put my headphones in just because of my dogs. That way they're not interrupting if I'm on a call. So hopefully you can hear me a little bit better. And I'm happy to kind of hold it up like this a little, just so hopefully that makes it a little bit better for everybody. Okay, so what is marketing? Marketing, I always tell my students in the classroom that marketing is the backbone of business. And like I said before, I teach principles of business, which covers all of the different facets in business, such as accounting, economics, management, HR. But I really believe that marketing is what will make your business grow and also thrive. And so it's very important that you put time and effort into marketing. Notice I didn't say a lot of money, because marketing doesn't necessarily require a lot of money. You just have to be very tactful about it. Okay. Marketing involves creating some value for your product. So it's important that when you are pitching your product or your service to a customer, that you are creating value around that. So what do I mean by value? Value, and just from a definition purpose, is the relationship of benefits to cost. And we all have different value systems. Okay, so for example, let's say that you are in the mood for lunch, right? Because it's right around lunch right now. Some of you guys may think, okay, I'm going to go grab Chick-fil-A for lunch, because in your mind, spending $10 on Chick-fil-A has a value to it. Okay, you're no longer hungry when you eat it. Some individuals may think, I don't want Chick-fil-A, I want something a little bit more gourmet. And you go to a restaurant and you sit for lunch and you spend $25, right? There's no difference between the person that spent 10 or the person that spent 25, except that their value for lunch is different. One isn't better than the next, okay? Again, it's based on your value. There are things that people will spend a lot of money on, and then there's things that they won't. And so it's very important for you to understand what your customers need and want, okay? What's the difference between a need and a want? So for example, take a car. What do you need in a car? Well, you need an engine, right? You need tires, you need a cooling system, you need the body of the car. In Texas, you need air conditioning because it gets very hot in the summer. But do you need a Bose stereo system in a car? No. Do you need chrome wheels? No. Those are all wants, okay? So it's important that we differentiate between needs and wants. Again, it doesn't mean that a customer that wants the chrome wheels and the Bose stereo system is bad, right? It just means that they want something different versus what somebody else needs. And so when you're setting up your business or you're setting up your product and you're going to market to individuals, it's important that you understand who your target market is and what they actually need versus what they want. And then create that value for them in order to build your business. So the basics of marketing, we have what we call the 4 Ps of marketing. If there's anybody in here that has ever taken a marketing class anywhere, whether it's high school, at the college level, you're going to see this repeated throughout history, okay? We've built marketing historically around these 4 Ps, and we now call them the marketing mix. So we have product, price, placement, and promotion. And one of the things that I want to stress is the difference between, before we get into these, is the difference between marketing and sales. A lot of times students tell me, oh, it's the same thing. Well, it's not. Selling becomes very easy if you market your product effectively. I want you guys to remember that. Again, selling becomes very easy if you market your product effectively. So if you create a value for your product, or you explain to your customer why they need or why they want this product, the selling part becomes very easy. Take buying a car, for example. If you walk into a car dealership and a salesman automatically approaches you and just try to sell you a car, you're going to be turned off by that and probably leave and not buy anything. But if the salesperson takes some time to learn about what you want, so let's say you have kids and you need room. You have kids, so you need a car that's easily clean. You like to take road trips, so you need good gas mileage, okay? The salesperson is then building that value for that car so that at the end of that conversation, which might be 30 minutes long or an hour long, the sale becomes very easy because you are now linked to that car. You see the value in it. And so it's very important to differentiate between marketing and sales. Okay, so always keep that in mind. Don't ever try to sell too quickly. Make sure that you market your product effectively first, and then the selling becomes easy. So let's take a little glance at these 4 so that you can kind of get an idea of what they all cover and what they all mean. So product. Product encompasses 4 different things. It encompasses actual products, right? So a cell phone, for example, actual product. It encompasses services. So if you go to a restaurant, the service that you get. It encompasses people because there are times when we have to sell ourselves to other people, for example, in a job interview, okay? And then ideas. There's times when we sell ideas. If you ever watch Shark Tank, for example, they sell their ideas to investors so that they could potentially get capital to open their business. So when you're setting up your business, it's important that you figure out which type of product it is that you're looking to sell, okay? Then you need to figure out what is it that sets my product apart from anything else that's on the market. So I'm selling a cell phone, great. There's thousands of cell phones out there. What about my cell phone that sets it apart from anything else on the market? And that is what you're going to use to then build a value for your product, okay? It's also important that you understand your product. So if somebody were to ask you questions about it, so example, the cell phone again. If somebody says, well, Sarah, what's the battery life? Or what's the storage on it? Or, what are the capacity for apps or whatever? I need to be able to answer those questions because that shows confidence and that I know my product. So again, if you are starting a business out there, be sure that you understand and know about your product before you actually put it out there to market it. The second P is going to be price. There are literally 100 different pricing strategies out there. But one of the things that I wanted to stress were these 3 and linking your price to your value. So let me give you an example. Nike. Everybody knows Nike, right? Well, it's a well-established brand. Nike sells for about 60 plus, okay? Sometimes you get them on sale, 50 bucks, but let's just say 60 plus. Nike does not sell for $10, okay? Because Nike understands the value of their brand and their product. If a customer saw a pair of Nikes for $10 out there, believe it or not, they will not buy it because they're used to Nike being sold for that price because of the value of the product. If you saw a pair of Nikes for 10 bucks, you would probably think, okay, what's wrong with it? Why is it only 10 bucks? Okay. And so anytime you're selling your product, make sure that you link it to your value. A common mistake that people make when they start a business is to just sell their products cheap. Don't undersell yourself, okay? Understand the value of your product. You want to understand what other competitors are selling theirs for, and that's one of the pricing strategies that I've put on there. Understand what other competitors are doing in your space. You don't necessarily have to mimic them, but if Adidas is selling for 60, 65, okay, then 60, 65 for Nike is a pretty good price point, all right? So that moves me into some pricing strategies. I just went over the competitor-based pricing. The other thing that you need to consider is cost-based pricing. So for example, you may have your fixed cost and your variable cost when you operate a business. And in some of your future sessions, you may go through this, but I just wanted to touch on it real quick. So your fixed costs are things like your rent. Your fixed costs can be things like insurance. All right. Your variable costs can be things like raw materials. Okay. Variable costs can be, even your labor to a certain extent can be a variable cost. Raw materials is going to be your biggest one because there are different times in the year when manufacturers sell things at different prices. Okay. Because it's costing them to make it a little bit more, depending again on the time of the year. That can change based on the season. So what you want to do is look at your fixed costs and your variable costs, figure out your total cost, and make sure that you're pricing your product to turn a profit. Okay, and we'll touch on that here in a minute again. The other thing is going to be channel pricing. So I always like to use my mom's business as an example for this. So channel pricing is the more channels that you have. So the more channels that your product has to cross, the higher your price. So for example, my mom was a florist. If she can buy directly from the grower, then she can lower her price point. However, as a retail florist, she had to purchase from a wholesaler. That wholesaler becomes a channel member. So the wholesaler buys it from the grower and then turns around and sells it to my mom. Everybody in the middle needs to make money, right? And so by the time it gets to my mom, she has to put it out at a different price point in order to make a profit. So unfortunately, we don't always have control over that. For example, with my mom, she couldn't always buy from a grower directly. So there's times that you do have to have those channel members in there, and that's okay, as long as you understand that you need to price it at a certain point to make that profit. Coming back to the cost-based pricing, it's very important that you understand how much it takes to run your business, because that's when you'll understand your break-even point. Giving you guys an example, take for example your home. Let's say that it costs you $3,000 to run your home, okay? And that's, your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, your food costs, gas, insurance, whatever it might be. You know that you need to bring in at least $3,000 every month to cater for those expenses. Essentially, it's the same thing in a business. You need to know what it is that you need to bring in every month to be able to get to what we call that 0% profit margin. One thing I'll say is that typically it takes a business anywhere from 3 to 5 years to really turn a good profit. Some products, typically what we call diffuse faster in the market. For the example, the iPhone, that diffused very quickly. But when you start a business and you're going on 3 years and you're right at that break even, or you're right at that 5% profit margin, that's okay. Okay. Now, if you're still there in, 5, 7 years, then that'll be a problem. But it's okay. Our goal is to always get to that break even analysis and then turn a profit. Okay. Okay, some pricing strategies that we have. Seasonal pricing, I put that one on there because we are in Texas and we are switching seasons right now. So we're going from cold to warm, hopefully, although it is still pretty cold today. But you're going to start seeing some of those cold items on sale. So for example, sweaters and jackets and boots, those are going to go on sale as it gets warm. That's what we call seasonal pricing. So if you have a product that is seasonal, then you do want to implement one of those pricing strategies because your product is going to fluctuate as far as sales go throughout the year. The other thing is going to be sales. So you could certainly have a sale, 10% off, 20% off, etc. I would tread carefully with that, especially as an entrepreneur, because you don't want to go out of the gate with a sale. Okay, you want to be able to build your financial resources before you actually start doing sales. However, if you have a product that's not moving fast enough, then you perhaps want to do a sale, okay? Our goal in business is to get product in the store, get it on the shelf, and get it out the front door. Okay. Again, you get product in the store, get it on the shelf, and get it out the front door. And so sometimes you may have to do a sale for that. Another pricing strategy that works great depending on your inventory is going to be a buy one, get one free, or a buy one, get one half off. You probably see that all the time in any facet of business. Grocery shopping, you'll see that. Shoes, you'll see that. Okay. Again, you want to be careful because you never want to fall below that break-even analysis. So if you're doing a buy one, get one free, or any kind of pricing discount, always make sure that you're pricing it enough where you are still making a profit. It may not be a full, 50, 100% profit, because maybe you do want to move some inventory out of your store, but you want to make sure that you still are turning a profit. So the third P is called placement, and placement is very similar to retail. So placement is where you're going to sell your product. Back in the day, our only option were brick and mortar stores, right? So you had to physically go into a store to buy something. Nowadays, with technology and globalization, pretty much the world is at your fingertips. So I could literally get on my computer and buy something from Singapore right now if I wanted to, okay? And so that's the other thing about entrepreneurship is that you need to figure out where you're going to sell your product. Are you going to have a brick and mortar store, or are you going to just be solely online? Are you going to maybe sell to another retail store and just have your product on their shelf? So it's important for you to figure out where you're going to sell it. And a large part of that has to do with who is your target market. So if somebody told me that they were going to open up a store in Dallas, my first question would be where in Dallas? Because Dallas is so big that the target markets vary. If you divide Dallas into 4 different areas, you would have north, south, east, and west. And demographically speaking, it's very different. And so it's important that you understand your target market. Okay. It's important that you understand the demographic of your target market so that you can figure out how to price those things. You can figure out what product works for them. Okay. And then, like I mentioned, retail is typically going to be, unless you're opening up some kind of wholesale store, retail is typically going to be where you're at. And that can either be brick and mortar or that can be online. And retail could literally take me several months for me to go through everything. But one thing I will say is that retailing is an art form, okay? When you have your store, it's not just about randomly putting things in your store. For example, when you go grocery shopping, right? What's right at the register or the checkout? There's all kinds of random stuff. There's gum, there's lighters, there's candy, okay? All of that is intended for you to up the dollar amount that you're going to spend. Okay. A rule of thumb in retailing is when a customer comes in the store and they think that they were going to spend X amount, you want them leaving spending 3 times that amount. Okay. And that may sound kind of mind blowing, like, wow, how do we do that? It's very easy. It's where you put things in your store. Okay. You want to make sure that you categorize things. You want to make sure that you put things that go together near each other. For example, shirts and ties, right? Somebody may walk into your store thinking, oh, I'll buy a shirt for $30, but because the ties are right next to it and they see the match, now they're spending another $25 for a tie, right? And then they go to check out and there's socks right there. So you throw in another $10 on top of that. So they came in thinking they were going to spend 30, they're going to leave spending like 80. And so it's not hard. Again, it's all about where you position things in your store. And also for online, right? Online shopping is the same. When you design a website, you want to make sure where you place things on your website facilitates that ease of shopping. The fourth P is what we call promotion, and promotion is essentially the advertising side. On the advertising side, this has evolved over the last couple of years. Back in the day, television used to be the number one. Now television has dropped to, I think, number 3 or 4. Social media marketing is obviously number 1. Radio advertising is number 2. And the reason being is because people still listen to live radio, and it's actually not very expensive to advertise on the radio. And so promotion is, now that you know about your product and you have figured out how to price it and then where to sell it, promotion is now, how are you going to let people know that you're there? So you have a great product, but nobody knows that you exist. You have a great restaurant, nobody knows that you exist. And that's why promotions are so important, to be able to get the word out that you're there. Okay. And a little bit later in this, we will talk a little bit about social media marketing and the use of things like hashtags to be able to kind of reach some people. All right, so branding, let's talk a little bit about branding. Again, branding is one of those topics that we can go on for weeks on, but branding is anything that a customer associates with your company. Keep in mind, this could be something negative, okay? So if you've ever had a negative experience, like at a restaurant or a retail store, then you have what we call a negative brand association with that brand, okay? And so anytime you're building a brand, you always want to make sure that customers feel positive about your brand. And there's several different reasons that that could be. Maybe your product quality is just phenomenal, and so they develop that brand loyalty. Maybe your product is easy to get. So even if somebody orders it online, maybe your shipping's fast. And again, they develop that brand loyalty. So there's a lot of different things that can go into building your brand, okay? Your brand can be a slogan, for example, Nike is just do it. It can also be a set of colors. Target has the red and white. It can be an image. So like McDonald's are those golden arches, right? It can even be a person, like the Allstate or the State Farm guy, Jake from State Farm, right? He's part of their brand now, okay? And so it doesn't have to be just one thing. It could be a plethora of different things that combine to form your brand. One of the best brands out there is Target. So Target utilizes several things. Target utilizes colors, so the red and white. It utilizes that actual Target symbol. And then it also utilizes a dog, right? Spot. And so Target has a really good brand. There's other great brands out there, Nike, Apple. And so if there's a brand that you really like as an entrepreneur, I would say definitely kind of follow that brand a little bit and see what it is that they're doing. So see what are some steps that they're taking to grow their brand, okay? What are some things that they're doing in their community, for example, to help grow that brand? So how do you build it? Visibility is key, okay? If people don't see you, they don't know that you're there. And so visibility is key when it comes to building your brand. Always remember that as an entrepreneur. Anytime you can get out in the public and people can see you, whether it's a hat and you're wearing your company name, or a t-shirt, or you have a keychain, or again, those hashtags, visibility is key. Figure out how you want to be perceived. So do you want to be known as the brand that when people see your ads or hear anything about your brand, they laugh? When people see your ads or hear anything about your brand, they cry? And you guys might be wondering, well, why do I want to make somebody cry? Good ads are ads that invoke an emotional response. People remember those ads. Okay, and that could be happiness, it could be sadness, or it could be that you're mad at the ad, right? But you remember it because it invokes that emotional response. And so how do you want to be perceived? And again, only you can figure that out. Always make sure, and I know we've gone over this before, make sure that you align your pricing with that value of how you want the brand to be perceived. So take Nike again. Nike aligns it by putting their price point at 60 and up. They don't sell shoes for $10 because they want that perception of quality. They want that perception of design into their brand, okay? And then you figure out, how are you gonna develop your logo or your slogan? You could do it yourself, or there's several graphic artists out there that are happy to do that for you. There's several programs that you can jump on to use. So there is that option also of you creating your own brand. So here's another quote that I really like. Don't find customers for your product, find products for your customers. And so when we start a business, we often create a product and we're like, okay, I'm going to figure out who I'm selling this to. And yes, while that is a good way of thinking, because you want to find your target market, it's also important for you to understand that market and figure out what product or what business can I put in that market that would work. Okay. So for example, if you live in a town that has, 5 Italian restaurants, well, yeah, you could open up an Italian restaurant and potentially find customers, but it may not work because that market's saturated with Italian restaurants. Maybe you open up a Caribbean restaurant. I'm from the Caribbean, so I'm a little biased, but maybe you open up a Caribbean restaurant, right? And now there's nothing like that in that area, and customers are like, wow, what is this? And so that's one way to definitely look at it, is finding products that fit your customers or that target market that you're looking for. So let me talk a little bit about the marketing plan, and I do want to be able to get to your questions. So I'm going to speed it up just a little here, but again, if you have questions, you can always email me. I'm happy to answer those. The marketing plan has several different components. The first one is your executive summary. This is just basically the key points in what you're going to do. The only reason the executive summary is important is if you are looking for an investor and they don't want to look through an entire marketing plan, they're just going to look at those key points and decide, okay, do I want to invest or not? All right. Then you want to figure out what we call the environmental analysis. So essentially, who is your target market? Okay. Look around your environment and figure out, demographically speaking, is it more males? Is it more females? What are the age groups? You know, what are the ethnic groups? Is there a religion component to this? And so you want to do what we call that environmental analysis. The third thing is what we call a SWOT analysis. And so SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities for improvements, and threats to your industry. Okay. Every company has strengths, just like people, we all have strengths. Okay. So it's important to build on those. As entrepreneurs, if you haven't started your businesses yet, the strength is you. Okay. That grind that you have and that goal that you have to be successful, that's your strength. The weaknesses are going to be, where can I improve? Okay. So don't look at it as something completely negative. Look at it as something of an opportunity there for improvement. And that's where the opportunities come. So we list our strengths, we list our weaknesses, and our opportunities for improvements come from those weaknesses. And then we have to look at threats. Threats are typically going to be your competitors. So again, if I'm opening an Italian restaurant in my town and there's already 5, I have lots of threats because I have lots of competition. Okay. And so it's very important to do a SWOT analysis. These 3, I would say, provides the basis for your marketing plan. Okay. This is the foundation that you're going to continue to build that plan off of. And so here is kind of the meat of the plan, these 5. The fourth part is going to be your goals. So what is it that you're trying to do? Are you trying to get a 25% profit in the first 2 years? Are you trying to get, 100 repeat clients? Are you trying to get sales to a specific volume? Do you just have a great idea for a product and you want to share it with the world? What is it that you're trying to do? And those are your goals. Then figure out, okay, here are my goals. How am I targeting this market to accomplish these goals? Okay. And that's where you're going to apply that marketing mix. So those 4 P's. It's very important that you figure out your budget. A rule of thumb in marketing is we always want to operate about 80% of our budget, because if we have an advertising campaign going, for example, and it's really good, we want to then make sure that we can continue it. So if we're operating at 100% of our budget, we don't have that capacity to extend anything that's promotional. So when we're looking at our budget, you want to make sure that you do about 80% of your budget. Now, you may have heard me mention before that when we're looking at overall budget for your business, marketing could potentially not take up a large portion of that. And yes, so marketing can, if you're doing a lot of advertising, but it can also be focused more on social media, for example, which has several free options. It could be focused on relationship building. So for example, if you're going into real estate or you're wanting to become a realtor, you may spend some money upfront on marketing yourself and marketing to your community. But as you start to build that business, a lot of your sales are going to come from referrals. So you can certainly pull back on that marketing budget at that point and focus more on referrals and relationship building. And so when we're looking at the budget, we want to make sure that we don't just put in a huge budget up front, but we strategically select where we want to spend those funds. Okay. Then you have on the implementation side, depending on who is in your company, you need to figure out what role is each person going to play in this marketing plan. If it's just you, then actually that's great, because then you control everything. Along with that, you want to develop a timetable. So for example, let's say that your goal is to hit 100,000 likes on social media or have 20,000 followers on Instagram. Develop a timetable for that. Say, hey, I want to hit that in 6 months, or I want to hit that in a year. And then you can figure out the strategy to be able to do that. And we'll talk again a little bit about that when we do social media marketing. In marketing, 9 times out of 10, the last step in everything is to evaluate. We always want to look back on what we've done and think, okay, was this worth it? Was this worth the money that I spent? Was this worth the time and effort? If it is, great, okay, because then obviously you've seen some kind of net profit off of it. If it wasn't, that's okay. It's trial and error. So how can we improve on this? Okay, how can we, what changes do we need to make so that the next strategy that we implement will be worthwhile? So here's a little bit on social media marketing. If you don't know what SEO is, it's search engine optimization. So for example, if you go to Google and you Google shoes, okay, the first page of Google that has maybe 20 listings on there, those websites have paid for search engine optimization. Okay, now you may be asking, well, how do I get search engine optimization on a small budget? The answer to that is you can and you can't. So as you continue to grow your brand, people will actually type in directly and look for you. But with your brand not being grown as yet, if you're going to be a shoe store and they type in shoes, it's not going to get to the first in line. So what a lot of people do is when they are picking their website, they pick a website that has either a number or an A in it. And that way, when people type in shoes, theirs may be one of the first to pop up. Okay, but again, we can go on for weeks on how to develop your website and how to increase those search engine optimizations. But that is definitely something to consider when you're building a website. You need to also figure out which platform it is that you want to focus on. Can you do multiple platforms? Of course. Okay, but a lot of times what tends to happen is businesses that focus on multiple things right out of the gate tend to fail on all multiple things because they're not just focusing their efforts on one thing and prioritizing that. So I would say if you're using social media marketing, pick maybe 2 forms of social media marketing and do focus on those 2. Keep in mind that LinkedIn is also part of social media marketing. So it doesn't just have to be things like TikTok or Instagram or Twitter. You can certainly throw LinkedIn in the mix to kind of capture the more professional audience. I'm sorry, the poll just popped up. I just minimized it. I hope that's okay. All right, so developing strategies for your platform. So once you have decided which platform you're going to go on, you definitely want to utilize some hashtags, okay? Be strategic about your hashtags, but don't minimize them, okay? Don't say, all right, I can only put in 4 or 5 hashtags. You can put in 20 if you want to. And that way, when people are looking for certain things and they type it in, yours is going to come up. I'll give you guys an example. So I run a nonprofit also with my husband and my best friend. And one of the things we do is we put on a golf tournament every year that raises funds for St. Jude's. And anytime we are advertising on social media, we put in any handle that we can think of that's related to golf or St. Jude's. That way, if somebody's looking for a golf tournament and they go to Facebook and type in golf tournament, our hashtag is going to register and it's going to pop up. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to pick our golf tournament, which is fine. But again, that goes back to that visibility. Okay. Sometimes you have to figure out your budget. So especially on like Facebook, for example, if you do want to optimize some of those, you do have to pay for it. I've seen those work, yes and no. I've seen where you pay $25 on Facebook and it literally goes to people that aren't even in your target market. And so in my opinion, the hashtags do work a lot better, and it can also help to keep your costs down, especially as an entrepreneur, because you're operating within a certain budget. Make sure that you have continuous engagement. Okay, so constantly post as much as you can. Okay, it's never too much. Again, that visibility is a key factor in growing your brand. So post as much as you can. Make your content engaging. So you don't just want to have like a post with a paragraph of information to read. Maybe put a link on there for your product. Maybe put a video on there for your product. Okay, so do something on there that causes people to be engaging. For example, that poll that just popped up on the screen, you can certainly do a poll on social media to get people engaged. You can have them share their favorite picture. So for example, I'm also a travel agent, and sometimes when I'm focused on selling a certain region, I'll post on there, here, share your favorite picture of Ireland or share your favorite picture of Mexico. And I get people engaged on my site so that they're in there and they're visible and they're seeing me, they're seeing other people being engaged. And so that just creates more engaging content for that social media site. Be consistent. So don't post today and then 3 months from now post. Okay. I understand that life happens, right? So you may get sick, you may have a family emergency, but there is software out there that you can purchase that will allow you to set up posts for the future. So let's say that you're taking a trip and you know you're not going to have internet access. You could certainly utilize some of that software out there and update your posts, or those posts will automatically populate even when you're not at your computer screen. The other thing is to use some metrics. Okay, so you can use, Facebook has good metrics on it, but you can also utilize Google metrics or any of the Google services out there, and it'll tell you whether or not you're getting enough hits on your social media. Sometimes it may even give you some guidance on how to increase those number of hits or your visibility. So that's just kind of social media marketing in a nutshell. Again, we can go on for weeks about it, but I do want to cover a couple other things. Oh, here we go. So these are some strategies for entrepreneurs. And so as an entrepreneur, you're probably going to fall into one of these three categories. Diversification is when you have a brand new business in a brand new market. Or market development, when you've taken your old product and now you're wanting to branch out into a different market. Or product development, where you're in a market and you're like, hey, what else can I add, to my portfolio? So as an entrepreneur, you're probably going to be in one of these three categories. Essentially, all three are probably going to require the same mechanisms for getting your business going. Okay. And I'm not going to go through all of them in the interest of time, but some of them obviously include making sure that you target that market and that visibility. Create a market landscape. What that is to truly dissect your market and figure out where is each population of demographics located, so you know exactly where to market your product. Influencer marketing is another thing that is useful nowadays. If you can get someone to jump on board with your product or your business that has a huge social media following, then they could certainly help you with promoting your product out there. I would suggest utilizing CRM, so customer relationship management software. There's several out there. Salesforce is a good example of one. But what this does is it enables you to manage your customer database and to figure out who am I not reaching and how do I reach them, okay? Also, on the social media side, you can certainly do videos. That's very helpful. People like visual aids, right? That's why YouTube has gotten so popular. Also, what we call microblogging is another great way to put your product out there. Here's what a microblog is. So you all probably know what a blog is, right? So you go online, you look at different blogs, let's say a travel blog. So somebody posts a picture on there and some long thing of where they went and whatever. A microblog is just a snapshot of that. So it'll have a little picture and then just a couple of points on there to capture that audience and engage them. And once you've engaged them and maybe they like your website or they like your social media page, now they're going to end up seeing more content from you. And so that's what the microblog does. It just captures the audience very, very quickly to kind of sustain them for that long-term relationship and growth, okay? Narrative development, what that is advertising. So you are in control of your narrative, okay? You are in control of your goals and your destiny. So you are in control of what people know or learn about your product or your service. And so always make sure that the narrative that you are putting out there is what you want people to know about your product or your service. Okay, so for those of y'all that are out there that maybe are thinking, yes, I want to do a product or I want to, open up a business, but I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where I want to start. I don't know, I have this grand idea of being an entrepreneur. And that's okay. That's where it starts, right? Is that grand idea. So the first thing you want to do is generate your idea. So what interests you? Okay, I always tell my students to pick a career where if they didn't get paid for what they were doing, that they would still do it. Because then that means that they just love what they're doing so much that they would do it even without a paycheck. So what excites you? Okay, always figure out, okay, what is something that I can be around a lot or I can do a lot? Okay, don't look at the money. The money will come eventually. But look and see, okay, what do I really want to do that I don't mind spending 20 hours a day working on this? So that's the generation of the idea. The second thing is testing your concept of the idea. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you like to bake, Okay. So you decide, hey, I'm going to open a bakery. So my bakery is going to sell, gluten-free cakes. Okay. So that's your idea right there. So that's step one. Step two would be testing the concept of the idea. And what I mean by that is you throw the idea out to people. It could be friends, family, it could be a poll on social media, right? And say, hey, what would you think of a bakery that sells gluten-free cakes? So you haven't invested any money as yet, right? But you're just throwing the idea out there to see what people would think of that idea, right? Do they like it? Are they responding? Are they like, no, that's a terrible idea? And then you're like, okay, I'm going to find a different idea now. Or are people saying, you know what, that's really good. I think you should explore that further. Okay. If they say, hey, go ahead and explore that further, the next step is what we would call the product testing. So in the next step, you would actually be creating your product. So you would develop that gluten-free cake. Okay. That obviously takes a little bit of money, some time. You want to make sure that the cake you develop doesn't cause allergies for other people. Maybe you want to test some of the different components that go in the cake to bring your price point down, right? So you may want to do a different thing each time just to kind of test it out a little bit and see how it's going. All right. So that's testing the product. Keep in mind, you haven't opened your bakery yet. You haven't launched it yet. Okay. So now you've made some of these cakes. The next step is to test your market. So you would go into your potential market. So let's say that you approach Kroger and you say, hey, I have some of these cakes that I want to test out. Do you mind if I just hand them out for free and get some feedback, or hand out samples and get some feedback? That's testing the market. Hand it out to your family, your friends, if you still have coworkers, anybody, and just say, hey, what do you think about this? Okay. If people respond positively, then you move forward. If they respond negatively, that's okay. Ask for some feedback. What can I do to improve this? Okay. And then you go back to the drawing board, or in this case, back to your kitchen, right? And you rebake these cakes, and then you put it back out there and test the market again. But let's say that it's great, and your friends and your family and anybody that has tried it is like, man, you need to move forward with this. That's what we call the product launch. So in your product launch, that would be when you actually go full scale. You would open up your bakery, you would do some advertising to let people know that you're there. You would start selling your products. So that's the full product launch. Okay. And then you always want to evaluate. I mentioned before that 9 times out of 10, what we do in marketing involves evaluating your product. So 3 months down the road, you want to look back and say, okay, how is my product doing? Is it selling like I anticipated? Do customers respond to that price point? How is this going? If it's going great, then continue. Give yourself some additional goals. If it's not going so great, that's okay. Take a step back and say, okay, what do I need to do to fix this? Maybe it's more marketing, right? Maybe it's more social media presence. Maybe it's inviting people in and giving them 10% off. Maybe it's having a different set of products. Maybe it's the price point. So whatever it is, you fix it and then you keep going. Okay, so some key takeaways for today. And again, I know I've talked about a lot, and this was just a short, 50 minutes of marketing, which we teach in entire semesters. But I hope that you all kind of gained something from today. So the first thing you want to do is create some value for your product or your business. Value is key. Okay, people will gravitate to things that they have value for. Okay, you want to make sure you price your product appropriately to match that value. Figure out where you're selling your product. Is it going to be online? So you need to up social media. Is it going to be a brick and mortar type venture where you need to rent a space and kind of design that with kind of a retail plan? So where are you selling it? Then develop your marketing plan. Even if you may not use it step by step, that's okay. Marketing plans are wonderful because if you do need an investor, you can literally just hand them a plan and you have it already. Or sometimes it kind of gets you back on track. If you've gone off track a little bit with your goals and your timeline, you can always come back to your marketing plan and figure out, okay, what do I need to do to get back on track? Okay, because again, life happens. We tend to get pulled in different directions. The other thing is utilize social media. Even if you don't have a website per se, but you have a brick and mortar store, that's okay. You can have a social media site that you can sell straight through. Okay. And websites, honestly, are so easy to create nowadays. One of the products that we're very familiar is Wix.com. And Wix, you can create a free website if you want, or you could pay Wix to design it for you, or you can pay for your domain and you design it, because there's all these different tools on there. And so if you're looking for a website too, GoDaddy is another one that we always recommend. But there's just so many tools out there nowadays for you to be able to create your website, for you to be able to create your social media, even if you do have that brick and mortar store. All right, well, I will. So here's my information. As I mentioned before, this is my email address. So feel free to email me any questions or anything that we touched on today. If you're like, hey, can you expand a little bit on that? No problem. Or if you have an idea that you want to bounce off of me, no problem. And also, this is my LinkedIn profile. If you want to connect, again, happy to connect with anybody that's out there. So I will turn this back over to Kay. I will stop sharing my screen. And Kay, I'm turning it back over to you for any questions.
Yes, thank you so much for that. We had a couple of questions in the chat. One, Ms. Dion Fletcher wants to know that there was a lot talked about products, but what about a business that provides services?
Great question. So here's the thing. So services are a little bit more challenging than products. That doesn't mean that you cannot be very successful in services. The reason that it's challenging is because you have both, right? So take a restaurant, for example. The restaurant has the actual product, which is the food that comes out, but it also has the service, which is the mechanism to get that food out. So sometimes we hear people talk about, oh, I'm not going back to that restaurant because they had terrible service, but the food was actually good. Or the reverse, the food was terrible, but the service was good. And so one of the things I would say is any of the strategies that we use today, you can certainly use for the service industry. You just want to be very cognizant of the fact that you're dealing with kind of a double product, so to speak, because you have your actual product, plus you have the service as well that goes into that. But again, any of those strategies can be useful. And I'm happy to talk to you about some other things behind the scenes on services. One of the things with services is typically services that do well are services that are consistent. So you know that when you go into, I'll use a restaurant example, you know when you go into this restaurant, your food's going to come out in 10 minutes, right? If you go into a restaurant and one day it comes out in 10 minutes, one day it comes out in 30 minutes, well, that's kind of, you know, you're like, well, do I go back a third time? Do I not? And so consistency is very key. Reviews are also a great thing. So if you have a service type industry, you definitely want to get people to do reviews if you can. Sometimes people will do it for free, but sometimes they need incentives. So, hey, if you do a review, you get 10% off the next time you come in. And so those are just some additional tactics separate from the product itself that you can use for services. I hope that answered your question.
Is there any way for the participants to get a copy of the presentation?
Oh yeah, definitely. Kay, I'm happy to email it to you if you would like to send it out. Does that work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have all the attendees information. Another question that was asked was around the SEO and how the SEO is considered social media marketing if it's the backbone of creating a website.
Yeah, good question. So we tend to kind of marry social media and e-com a lot. So I apologize for the confusion. SEOs are more on the e-com side of things, but again, typically if you're doing one, you're doing the next. And so that's why we kind of marry them in. And that's why I put them together on this presentation. Although it is different than your actual social media site, the SEO will come into play when you develop your own website, which is more on the e-commerce side. However, you can certainly promote your website on social media. And that's what we encourage people to do, is to develop both in tandem with each other. If you go to a website, we encourage you to list all of your social media on there. If you go to social media, we encourage you to put your website on there and promote that. So even though, yes, the SEO is not really a part of social media, it is linked to it because a lot of times we marry the two. When we teach it at the college level, it's two separate classes, but students always take both of them because again, they kind of go hand in hand.
Great, great. I do want to let you all know that in attendance that the session was recorded, and when you get the presentation, I will also include the link of the recording in that so that you can go back and take a look at the recording and refresh anything you may have missed. Also, during the presentation, I had several questions about social media marketing, and individuals wanting more information on social media marketing did a survey, and every participant said they would want to get in more information and dive more into social media marketing. So trust me when I tell you, I will go ahead and start working on putting that together. And the next email you get will also have date and information on a social media marketing webinar. So we think we have any more questions that I was not able to answer in the chat, Sarah. So
Okay.
I will stop sharing that.
Any last questions before everybody gets off of here? And with social media marketing, Kay, that would be a great webinar. We teach a full class in social media marketing, and there's just so much that goes into it. But
Right.
even with the different areas of social media, you know, the way that you market on Instagram is a little different than Facebook, TikTok, which is kind of, you know, TikTok's up in the air politically right now, but each of those are a little different in terms of how you market. And so that would be a great webinar for entrepreneurs to take.
I agree. And also just, you know, being able to utilizing Yelp review, like utilizing Google and all those type of things, the free ways to market and get your name in front of potential customers as well. So I will start planning that. I will get a date, and to all attendees, I will send you all that information. I hope you guys can join us then as well. So there's no other further questions. I don't see any more in the chat. Thank you so much, Sarah. I will follow up with you. And thank you to all those that attended. Next week will be Business Planning 101. So please feel free to visit gptx.org/small biz, that's BIZ, for all of our upcoming webinars. And I hope you guys can join us. Have a good day.
Have a good day, everyone. Thank you for joining.